Alright, YouTube, I had the craziest idea last night just as I was about to go to sleep. Now, you gotta hear me out on this, which you probably already know what I'm going to say, judging by the title of this video, but what would you think about a Xenoblade Chronicles style game with like the Fates, servants, and lore and everything, but in a Xenoblade Chronicles kind of style? Wouldn't that sound crazy? Alright, so thanks for joining me on this quick video. We're going to be talking today about my crazy idea of a Xenoblade Chronicles styled Fate game. Now, I know a lot of you people will say, yo, there's already a Fate games, Fate Extella on the Nintendo Switch, PS4, whatever. There's also the free-to-play Fate game, Fate Grand Order, which allow me to say something on that real quick. I was wrong in my earlier video, like earlier this year, when I was bashing on Fate Grand Order. Fate Grand Order is actually a really, really good free-to-play game. It's probably my favorite free-to-play game right now of all time. Free-to-play, remember that. It's definitely not going to overtake KOTOR, but that's a paid game. And you know, I'm definitely man enough to admit that I was wrong about Fate Grand Order. It's a really good game. But that's all just besides the point. Now, what gave me this idea of a Fate Grand Order game styled in Xenoblade Chronicles was, playing Xenoblade Chronicles. Now, it's been a while since I've played Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I completed the game like months ago. But after seeing the release of the Torna Country DLC, I think that's what it's called, the new standalone DLC that came out for the game, I'm thinking about getting it. Tell me what you think about the game down below. A lot of people are saying it's like Game of the Year material. But anyways, that's besides the point again. After seeing the Torna of the Golden Country coming out, it got me thinking, Fate, the Fate series, the Fate lore, the games would fit really well with a Xenoblade Chronicles style game. Now let's get into why I think that. Now, I'll be using Fate Grand Order as my main basis, as what I feel like should be in this Fate Chronicles game, Fate Xenoblade Chronicles game, we'll call it. And I'll also be talking about the Fate Extella games a little bit here or there as well. So now let's get started for real this time. The combat would match up very well, I think, with the way Xenoblade Chronicles is set up, with like the arts and the skills and whatnot. In the Fate Grand Order game, you do get arts cards, buster cards, and quick cards that you can use to power up your servant, with the Noble Phantasm, buster for damage, quick cards for the, critical star gathering. The game's already pretty much set up around arts, using arts for battle. That's where I think that's already lining up. We're having arts-based gameplay already, art-based combat, and really all you have to do is button map these arts cards. So you can essentially just copy over the Xenoblade Chronicles 2 gameplay over and just rename some of the things. And another thing that made me think about it is how, in the Fate lore, the master is providing mana to the servant, right? Well, in Xenoblade Chronicles, the blade is providing ether to the drivers, right? Those lines that are connected to between the blade and the driver, providing power, and as the bond increases during the fight, the more powerful you can be, pull off some pretty crazy moves and such. Why not reverse that, where we can have the master being the one to supply the mana to the servant, and as that bond grows during the fight, the servant becomes more powerful and can pull off these extra moves, and even the Noble Phantasm once the gauge is full, kind of like how there's the final move, or I can't remember what it's called, when the gauge up top fills up and you can pull off this massive move with all the blades that are around and such. You can do that. I can't think of an easier way that can translate into a Fate game. It's pretty much already there. Just reverse the roles of the blade and the driver, or in this case, the master and the servant. And the servant's the one that's doing the combat. Also, another thing that can make this work, and this is where my thought that maybe the developers behind Xenoblade, which is Monolith Soft, they should be the ones to make this game, I believe. Now, the reason being is because I think they are amazing storytellers. They told a great story in Xenoblade Chronicles 2. And that was my first Xenoblade game, so I can't speak for X and Xenoblade Chronicles 1. But I do know that I enjoyed the story immensely in Xenoblade Chronicles 2. It seems like a lot of people really enjoyed the story a lot in the Torna of the Golden Country standalone release. So this will give a chance to have an incredible story for a Fate game. And not in games like the Fate Extella games where it's like a graphic novel. And no offense to the people that likes those kinds of games, but I find graphic novel games incredibly boring most of the time. Especially with the level that Extella goes to when they're just kind of, I don't know, it's just really boring to me. And I also find the Extella game stories really hard to follow. I don't know if it's because I'm just not a very smart guy. I don't know. Just because I'm a programmer doesn't mean I'm very smart in other philosophical ways. It could be that, I don't know, but I find the story in Extella very hard to follow. It may be because of the graphic novel ways of the story. I'm not really used to it all that much, and I don't really enjoy it, which makes it hard for me to follow. So if it could tell like a traditional story, like I guess a Fate anime or how Xenoblade Chronicles tells its story, I feel like that will be a really good chance to actually get it out to mainstream. Have a really good story that's easy for people to follow along with, whether it be with the Holy Grail War or have something exactly like the Fate Grand Order game. I actually really enjoyed the story of that game, especially with how we can choose some of our dialogue options with how we want to respond to people. If they could do something like Fate Grand Order story-wise where we can actually choose what we want to say and maybe take it a step further and have the choices actually matter, because in its Fate Grand Order game, I mean, it's a mobile game, so your choices really don't matter like at all. It may make a different dialogue response from a servant for like a few seconds or whatever, but really in the grand scheme of things, it makes no real difference. So if they could actually make it mean something in this Xeno Fate game, that would be amazing. And the story would be so much more gripping, kind of like how the Mass Effect series were, with Mass Effect 1 going on to 2 and so on and so forth. It's like the kind of the gold standard of RPGs with choice in the stories. And I also found games like Mass Effect Dragon Age's story far more easily to follow than the Fate Extella games. So there's also that added bonus, so maybe BioWare can make it, although I prefer if Monolith Soft makes the game, because their gameplay is top notch, the storytelling is top notch, everything is just top notch with that Xenoblade Chronicles 2. My only complaint about that game was the quests, but that's totally off topic. And one other thing that they can add to this game, even though I really hated this mechanic in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, is that they can make it so we can draw for our servants with crystals or like any kind of artifact that we can collect to actually summon them. Actually, that wouldn't be so bad if there were specific artifacts that we had to find to summon specific servants. That wouldn't be so bad, as long as they didn't lock off like all the servants or all the powerful servants till like near the end of the game. I'd like to be able to get these powerful servants like within the first 10 hours or so in the game. I think that's a pretty good spot, because this game could be like Xenoblade Chronicles 2 where you're putting in like 70 plus hours into the game. I wouldn't mind that, as long as the story's gripping, the side quests are good, as long as everything is good. They could also throw in events like they do in Fate Grand Order to kind of keep the game alive and moving along for a while. That would be really fun. Kind of like how Destiny 2 does it, or Fate Grand Order, as I was saying. Throw in seasonal events, or even just throw in special side quests as DLC. I really hate DLC with a passion, especially season passes, and especially microtransactions even more than anything. But for this game, I could understand some kind of DLC a little bit for extra side quests and stories, and as long as they're fleshed out, not just kind of boring fetch quests or anything. But I digress. Having a mechanic where we can summon servants, like powerful servants, would be awesome. It doesn't have to be RNG with the crystals like Xenoblade Chronicles 2, although it could, and I'd live with it for sure. I'd just be grinding a lot of crystals like I did in Xenoblade Chronicles 2. But it wouldn't be such a bad idea. And I pray that they don't try to tie microtransactions with that. I really do. Now, another thing that they could do for the Xeno Fate game is that they can allow us to change the classes and the outfits of the servants. But don't make the classes depend on the outfit like they do in Fate Grand Order. Now, I do like having different outfits for characters to choose from, and I do like how servants in the mobile games classes can change with different outfits. I feel like having the servants with different classes out of the norm from time to time can definitely change up gameplay a bit in a fun way. But I'd like the class change to be separate in the new game, because I just made like a different outfit for a servant, but not necessarily the class that's tied to said outfit like they do in Fate Grand Order. So I'd like to be able to just change the outfit and change the classes however which way combination I so please. But I do like the different outfits they have in Fate Grand Order, and I definitely like how the typical servant can change classes from a lancer to a berserker, or from a berserker to a saber, or whatever, or how a rider can end up being a ruler. I do like changing classes. I feel like it does definitely change up the mechanics of things, and it's a fun thing. It's almost like a job system, really. And as I was talking about earlier, I would accept DLC for this game for extra story content and or seasonal event DLC. I'd buy a season pass for that, and like I said earlier, I typically don't support season passes, but I definitely would for this game if there were different events in said game, kind of like how they do with the mobile game, with like the summer event, Halloween event, New Year's event, Christmas event, Easter events. Those events are fun, especially with the side story that comes with them when you're having to solve problems or clues, or even in the summer event recently for North America in Fate Grand Order, where you're stuck on an island and you have to build up these facilities on said island and uncover the mysteries of the demon boars and such that was going on the island. That stuff is really fun to me. And you know, it doesn't even have to be DLC. They can just have it in the game, and come certain seasons of the year, once the Switch picks up as a certain time of year, to unlock those events for us to play. There were other games in the past that kind of did that. Oh, it was Pokemon. I can't remember which Pokemon it was. I want to say it was Black and White, where the seasons could change the terrain and unlock or lock new areas in these past areas that we've been to. Even in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, really, different weather can change the terrain of the areas that you're in, whether it locks off caves or opens up new caves or islands or whatnot. So that's something that they could do with a Xeno Fate game. And you know, the biggest reason why I really want the Xeno Fate game to come out is because this way we can keep our rare servants that come out, you know, in the games forever. Unlike with the mobile game is going to eventually shut down. There's going to be no more at some point, and at that point, all the servants that we've collected throughout the years and leveled up and grinded and such, they're all going to go away. And that really kills me. It really makes me sad. But if we had an actual dedicated game to this, where we can actually collect these servants and play them and get their outfits and change their classes and deal with them in these Halloween events, which something I forgot to mention about the DLC part. I would like it if they could release more servants down the line with whatever ideas they have, whether it be new servants, new outfits for servants, and or new class changes for the servants. That would be pretty cool, kind of like how they do in a Fate Grand Order game, except it's free in that game because it's free to play and they want you to pay for it via the gacha. But in this game, you know, I'd pay for DLC for extra servants with the outfits and different classes, like easily. And I'll pay for the seasonal events. I do it. I really hate to say I do it, but I do it. And you know, at the end of the day, I feel like this idea could be done for just about any mobile game, where they can make these mobile games into an actual game for, like, say, the Switch, where we can collect these characters in said game and maybe pay for them for DLC for the extra new characters and outfits and classes or whatnot that comes out for the game. You know, games like, we'll say, the new Dragon Ball Legends games, where you can collect all these different people. Yes, we already have Dragon Ball Fighters and Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2. That's what it's called. I'll have another video talking about a Dragon Ball game that I'd like to be released, but that's for a different video. So tell me what you think down below about this Xenofate game, and any ideas that you want to add to the said game, or if you have anything that you disagree with me about. I'm sure a lot of people are going to disagree with me about the DLC and whatnot, but that's fine. That's okay. But tell me what your ideas are down below, and if you agree with me, make sure you hit the video with the thumbs up down below, like the video, share this video across everywhere and every platform you can, because I kind of want to get this idea in people's heads, especially developers and publishers, to maybe release something like this, because honestly, personally, I feel like the Fate Extella games aren't that good. They have potential. They have a lot of potential to be good, but they just aren't that good, and I feel like a Xenofate game would be the best possible way they can take this franchise, especially since most of the mechanics are already there. They already have the blade and driver set up there with the ether, you know, all that stuff I talked about earlier. They essentially have the groundwork there already. They just have to build on it and customize it for the Fate lore. So anyways, like I said, tell me what you think down below. If you agree or any ideas you have, share this video. Consider subscribing to this channel, where I like to do vlogs and talk about gaming, Pokemon, and just tech in general. I want to start reviewing tech at some point whenever I can afford it, but that's besides the case. I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.